I never believed a single night could destroy the life I spent years protecting, but that evening inside our Boston penthouse showed me how wrong I was. The city outside glowed with its usual polished calm, but inside, in the soft haze of our dimly lit living room, everything shattered. I was 7 months pregnant, carrying the weight of exhaustion and fear, while Rick, my husband, paced in his tailored suit, like a man too important to be questioned. I had grown used to his cold distance, but that night his cruelty arrived with a new face. Sienna, his much younger aide, dressed in a tight red dress and wearing a smile sharper than broken glass. She kept circling me, stepping closer every time Rick looked away. I held my belly with one hand and leaned on the edge of the marble counter, trying to steady my breathing. Noah, my 8-month-old son, slept peacefully in the nursery, unaware that his mother's world was tilting. The room smelled faintly of whiskey from Rick's untouched glass on the table, the same glass he used to smash my confidence month after month. Sienna whispered, "You should really stop pretending you matter." Her voice was sweet, but the venom underneath made the air heavy. I tried to step back, but my legs trembled. Rick didn't even glance toward me. He was too busy scrolling through his messages, thumbs moving fast over his phone like the chaos around him was nothing more than background noise. When Sienna pushed me the first time, it wasn't hard, but enough to make my heart jolt. The second shove came with a hissed insult. I stumbled, almost losing balance. I called Rick's name, hoping he'd notice, hoping he'd remember the vows he once made. He looked up, eyes cold, and said, "Don't start, Emily. You always exaggerate." That sentence cut deeper than the shove. Something inside me collapsed. My vision blurred before the real hit even came. Sienna's hand struck my shoulder, sending me falling sideways. My head hit the edge of the coffee table, a loud crack echoing through the room. A flash of white swallowed my sight. I reached out blindly, feeling nothing but the cold floor beneath my palms. The world dimmed into a dizzy fog, and the lights above me smeared into streaks. I heard Sienna laugh. I heard Rick sigh, annoyed, as if the sound of my pain was ruining his evening. My left eye darkened completely, a curtain dropping without warning. Panic surged through my chest, tight and burning. I tried to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. In that terrifying silence, I understood one thing: my husband would not save me. He wouldn't even look at me. The last thing I saw was the blurred outline of Sienna's heels walking past my face before the edges of my world disappeared entirely. Somewhere in the distance, Noah's soft cry leaked through the hallway, thin and helpless. The sound pierced me deeper than any blow. I tried to move, to reach for him, but my limbs refused to obey. The room tilted, shrinking around me as if the walls themselves were closing in. I felt the coldness of loneliness settle on my skin, heavier than the pain flooding my body. For the first time, I feared I might never see my children's faces clearly again. I prayed silently for strength to survive whatever waited beyond this moment for me. And in that darkness, a truth far worse than the pain began to reveal itself. When I opened my eyes again, the world didn't return the way I hoped. It came back as a thick, gray fog that swallowed every shape, every shadow, every bit of color I once trusted. I lay on a stiff hospital bed, the sheets rough against my arms, my head wrapped in bandages that made it hard to turn. A steady beeping echoed beside me, slow and rhythmic, like it was trying to convince me I was still alive. But inside, everything felt frighteningly quiet. I blinked, once, twice, again and again, but nothing sharpened. My left eye felt as if someone had stitched darkness directly into it. My right eye caught only blurred lights drifting across the room like ghosts. Panic gripped my chest. I tried lifting my hand to touch my face, to understand what had happened, but even that small motion felt heavy. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Noah, where's my baby?" A nurse approached, her voice gentle but distant. "Your son is safe. Your husband brought him earlier, but he left soon after. You need to rest, sweetheart. You had a serious head injury." Rick had been here. The thought shocked me more than comforted me. If he cared, he wouldn't have let any of this happen. I felt my throat tighten, remembering the sound of Sienna's laughter as my world went dark. The memory made my stomach twist. The nurse checked my vision, shining a small light that barely registered as warmth. She said softly, "Your sight should return, but it may take days. You must avoid stress." Avoid stress. I almost laughed. My marriage was built on stress. My life with Rick had become a long hallway of fear, and now I was trapped inside a body that couldn't fully see. I swallowed hard, tears forming, though I couldn't tell if they fell. I felt helpless, like a child lost in a storm without shelter. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time dissolved in the haze. I heard footsteps, firm and confident, stopping right beside my bed. A man's voice, deep and steady, filled the air. "Mrs. Hartman, I'm here to bring your chart." It wasn't a doctor, and it wasn't Rick. This voice carried a strange warmth, calm, genuine, almost protective. He adjusted something on the table, the faint click echoing. "If you need help signing anything, just tell me," he said quietly. I tried to turn my head toward him, desperate to anchor myself to something real. All I could make out was a tall silhouette surrounded by soft light. I can't see," I whispered. He paused, then answered with a softness I didn't expect. "Then I'll read everything to you. Don't worry." Something in me eased, just a little. I didn't even know his name, yet his presence grounded me more than Rick's had in years. When he spoke again, his voice carried a hint of restrained anger, not toward me, but toward the situation. "Your husband shouldn't have left you alone like this." I swallowed the pain rising in my chest. He doesn't care." Silence followed, heavy but understanding. The man didn't argue. He didn't make excuses for Rick. He simply stayed beside me, breathing steadily, as if lending me strength through the air itself. For the first time since the fall, I didn't feel completely abandoned. What I didn't know was that this stranger would soon change everything. Daniel returned to my room the next morning, though at that time I still didn't know his name. I only recognized the steady rhythm of his footsteps and the quiet confidence in the way he moved, like someone who understood emergencies without losing himself in them. When he spoke, his voice carried a warm grit, something grounded, something real. "Good morning, Mrs. Hartman. The doctor asked me to check on you." I tried to sit up, but my vision was still trapped behind a fog that refused to lift. Shapes floated, then disappeared. Even the sunlight pressing through the blinds looked like watercolors smeared by careless fingers. "I don't want to be alone," I whispered before I could stop myself. It felt childish, fragile, but the fear of blindness made honesty spill out without permission. He pulled a chair closer, the sound soft, almost cautious. "You're not alone," he said simply. Not dramatic, not forced. Just a quiet truth I didn't know I needed. He read through the medical updates, explaining each line with patience, pausing whenever my breathing grew shaky. I sensed kindness in the way he avoided overwhelming me. "Who are you?" I finally asked. "Daniel Miller," he answered. "I work with patient administration. My mom's recovering downstairs, so I'm here most days anyway." His presence felt strangely comforting, like a momentary shelter from the storm waiting outside the hospital walls. I imagined his face based only on tone. Maybe strong lines, tired eyes. A man who carried responsibilities without announcing them. "He'll come back," I murmured, meaning Rick. Shame washed through me. I hated how small my voice sounded. Daniel exhaled sharply. "If he cared, he wouldn't have left you like this." His words landed like a truth I had avoided for years. My throat tightened. I felt around for the cup on the table, but my fingers brushed empty space. Before I could panic, Daniel gently guided my hand to it. The simplicity of the gesture nearly broke me. A stranger showed me more care in 10 minutes than my husband had in months. "I'm scared," I confessed. "You're hurt," he corrected, "and you're stronger than you think." Something inside me trembled. Strength was the last thing I felt. I felt broken, blurred, half erased. Outside the room, I heard Rick's familiar footsteps, fast, irritated, purposeful. My stomach knotted. Daniel's posture changed. I sensed it in the silence. Rick shoved the door open. "Emily, we need to talk." Even in my blurred vision, I saw Daniel stand. Rick's voice cut through the air like a blade, sharp and irritated, the same tone he used whenever I inconvenienced his perfect public image. He stepped closer to the bed, and I could almost smell the expensive cologne he wore, clean, cold, detached. "You shouldn't involve staff in our personal matters," he snapped. "You're making things harder than they need to be." His words stung. I tried to lift my head, but the fog in my sight made everything tilt. Daniel didn't move away. Instead, he shifted slightly, positioning himself where he could see both me and Rick. His presence felt like a protective wall I never had before. Rick scoffed, muttering, "Pathetic," under his breath. The word hit me with familiar force, yet something was different this time. I wasn't entirely alone in absorbing it. Daniel's jaw tightened. I sensed an unspoken challenge in the space between them, a silent warning that Rick wasn't used to facing. My heartbeat quickened. For the first time, I wondered if someone might stand up, and that realization lit a spark neither of them could ignore. I spent 2 more days in the hospital before the doctors finally allowed me to go home, though home no longer felt like a place I belonged. My vision had improved only slightly. Shadows had shapes now, light had direction, but nothing else had clarity. Every step felt like balancing on the edge of a cliff. Still, the idea of returning to that penthouse with Rick and Sienna made my chest tighten until I could barely breathe. I knew I had to leave, even if I didn't yet know where to go. Daniel walked me to the exit, staying close but not overbearing. "Take your time," he said softly as I tried to steady myself. The cold Boston air hit my face like a wake-up call. I wrapped my coat tighter, one hand protectively holding my belly. My other hand shook uncontrollably. "I can call someone to pick you up," Daniel offered. "No," I whispered. "I just need to get my son and go." He hesitated, then nodded. "If anything feels wrong, call the number I gave you." I tucked the small card into my coat pocket. I didn't understand why this man cared, but at that moment, his quiet concern felt like the only safe thing left in my world. Rick arrived with a fake smile plastered across his face, the kind he used for news cameras and political galas. He guided me to the car with a hand on my back, but his touch felt cold, rigid, as if he were handling something fragile yet inconvenient. During the ride, the city blurred into streaks of winter gray. I asked about Noah, but Rick brushed it off. "He's fine. Stop worrying. You always overdo things." His voice made my stomach twist. When we reached the penthouse, I stepped inside and felt the air immediately tighten around me. The place smelled of expensive candles and something faintly metallic like tension. The living room was spotless, too spotless, as if someone had cleaned up not for living, but for erasing evidence. Sienna wasn't there, but I felt her lingering presence in the silence. I went straight to the nursery. My blurred sight caught the soft shape of the crib. Noah stirred as I lifted him, warm and familiar in my arms. Relief washed through me. So strong I nearly cried. I whispered into his hair, "We're leaving, baby. Mommy's here." But Rick's voice boomed down the hall. "Emily, we need to talk about your behavior. You embarrassed me at the hospital." I froze. "My behavior?" I repeated, heart pounding. "Yes, making the staff think I mistreat you, getting emotional, accusing Sienna. You know how damaging that is for me." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, but sharply, like the quiet break of a small bone. I walked past him with Noah on my hip, ignoring the ache in my side. "I'm packing," I said. "We're not staying here." Rick laughed, the sound low and mocking. "Where exactly do you think you're going? You can't even see straight." "I'll manage," I shot back, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. I grabbed a diaper bag, stuffed it with bottles, wipes, 2 tiny jackets, anything my blurred vision could catch. I found my cracked iPhone on the counter, still coated with the memory of that terrible night. My hands were trembling as I zipped the bag, but I didn't stop. When I stepped toward the door, Rick grabbed my arm. His grip was firm, warning, rehearsed. "You're not leaving." "Yes," I whispered. "I am." And then, as if the universe itself answered my plea, headlights washed across the foyer through the glass walls. A car had pulled up downstairs, sleek, dark, expensive. A silhouette stepped out. Even without full vision, I recognized the quiet confidence of that stance. Daniel had come back. Daniel didn't knock. He didn't announce himself. He simply appeared in the doorway of the penthouse lobby as if he had been summoned by the very fear trembling through my body. His figure was still blurry to me, but I recognized the grounded way he carried himself, the quiet steadiness that contrasted sharply with Rick's tension. The Mercedes behind him idled softly, its headlights casting long streaks of light across the marble floor. Rick stiffened. "What the hell are you doing here?" Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. "Emily called me earlier," he said calmly. She sounded frightened. I wanted to make sure she was safe. I hadn't called him, but hearing his voice gave me something I desperately needed, an opening. Rick's grip on my arm tightened, anger pulsing through his fingers. "She's fine," he snapped. "Go home." Daniel took one step closer. "She doesn't look fine." My heart thudded, partly in fear, partly in something else, hope, maybe. I shifted Noah in my arms, feeling his small fingers clutch the collar of my coat. His warmth steadied me. "I'm leaving with my son," I said. The words came out thin, but firm. Rick scoffed. "You're not going anywhere. You can barely walk without bumping into furniture. Stop acting dramatic." "Let her go," Daniel said. Rick turned on him, voice sharp. "You have no place in this. She's my wife." Daniel didn't flinch. "Then treat her like one." The silence that followed felt like the breath held before a storm. For a moment, the entire penthouse seemed to freeze. I felt Rick's fingers dig deeper into my arm, but then slowly, hesitantly, he loosened his grip, not because he cared, but because he feared what a scene might look like to the wrong set of eyes. I stepped back, clutching Noah. My vision swam, but Daniel reached out, guiding my free hand toward the elevator. His touch wasn't controlling, it was steady, like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. "I've got you," he murmured. Those 3 words carried me through the door. Rick stood behind us, simmering with quiet rage. "You'll regret this, Emily," he warned. "You're making a mistake." I didn't turn back. I couldn't. If I saw even the blurred outline of that man, I might lose my resolve. The elevator doors slid shut, sealing Rick on the other side, and I felt air return to my lungs in heavy, uneven breaths. Daniel pressed the ground floor button for me. Noah shifted, letting out a soft whimper. Daniel smiled gently at him, offering a fingertip for the baby to hold. "You're safe now, little guy," he whispered. When the elevator opened, the cold night air rushed against my face like freedom. Daniel led me carefully to the Mercedes, opened the back door, and helped me secure Noah into the car seat. My hands fumbled with the straps, my blurred vision making everything twice as slow. Daniel didn't rush me. He simply stood close, guiding me only when I asked. Once we were both in the car, he pulled out of the driveway, the city lights streaking past. "Where do you want to go?" he asked gently. "I don't know," I admitted. "I just can't go back." "We'll figure it out," he promised. He drove toward the Charles River, the quiet hum of the engine soothing my shaking nerves. The blur outside the window looked peaceful for the first time in days. When he finally stopped the car, I recognized the faint outline of a small hotel along the water, calm, discreet, safe. "I'll get you a room," he said. "You and your son can rest here tonight." Something inside me cracked, not from pain, but from relief. A stranger had become the one spot of stability in a collapsing world. What I didn't know was that Rick was already planning his next move. Daniel checked us into the small hotel by the Charles River with the kind of calm efficiency I desperately needed. My vision was still a haze, but the lobby lights felt softer than the harsh penthouse glare I'd escaped. Noah shifted tiredly against my shoulder, his tiny breaths warm against my neck. I could tell he sensed my fear, even if he couldn't understand it. Children always know when their mothers are breaking. The hotel clerk handed Daniel the key card, speaking in a polite whisper as if he understood the fragility hanging in the air. Daniel walked beside me down the hallway, quiet but present, guiding me when I hesitated. My steps were uneven. The carpet felt thick, almost too soft beneath my trembling legs. I clutched the diaper bag with one hand, relying on the faint shapes my eyes could piece together. Inside the room, The air smelled of detergent and faint lavender. Safe. Ordinary. A world away from the polished coldness of Rick's penthouse. Daniel helped me settle Noah on the bed, and for a moment I just stood there, unsure what to do next. My whole life had been reduced to this trembling stillness. "You should sit," Daniel said gently. I lowered myself onto the edge of the bed, pressing my palms together to keep them from shaking. He placed a warm cup of tea on the nightstand beside me. "You haven't eaten," he added. "They're bringing something up." I swallowed hard. "You didn't have to do all this." "I know," he replied softly. "But you needed help." That simple sentence unraveled something inside me. My throat burned, and tears spilled before I could stop them. I covered my face with my hands, ashamed of how easily I was falling apart. "I can't see anything clearly. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm disappearing." Daniel knelt in front of me, not touching, not crowding, just close enough to anchor me. "You just survived something traumatic," he said. "Anyone would fall apart." His voice had a warmth I'd forgotten men could have. But reality crashed back quickly. Rick. He would be furious. He would be calculating. He would find a way to twist this into my fault. My breathing sped up, chest tightening until I felt I couldn't inhale fully. "He'll come after me," I whispered. "He always finds a way." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Let him look. He won't get through the hotel without being noticed. And you're not alone." Those last words made my tears fall harder. Just then, Noah began to cry, a soft, tired cry that made my heart ache. I wiped my eyes and picked him up, rocking him gently. The weight of him grounded me. I kissed the top of his head, whispering, "Mommy's right here." But my voice still quivered. A knock came at the door, making me jump. My pulse spiked painfully. Daniel stood immediately, his body tense, protective. "It's just room service," he assured me after checking the peephole. Still, the fear didn't leave. It clung to me like a shadow that refused to loosen its grip. After the food arrived, Daniel set the tray on the small table and stepped back toward the door. "I'll stay in the lobby for a bit," he said, "just to make sure everything's calm." "You don't have to," I whispered. "I know," he said again, that same steady reassurance. "But I will." When the door shut behind him, the silence inside the room grew heavy. I rocked Noah until he drifted to sleep, then lay beside him on the bed. My eyes burned with exhaustion, but sleep felt distant. I kept hearing Rick's voice in my head, sharp and warning. "You'll regret this, Emily." I curled around my son protectively, and just when I thought the night couldn't get worse, my phone began to ring. The phone vibrated against the nightstand with a low, insistent buzz that rattled straight through my spine. I wasn't ready. My hands were still trembling from hours of fear, and my eyes still blurry made the glowing screen smear into one long, ghostly streak of light. Noah slept beside me, curled into the crook of my arm, warm and peaceful. I pressed a hand over my heart, trying to steady its frantic pounding before I reached for the phone. I didn't need to see the caller ID to know it was Rick. His timing was too predictable. He always called when he felt control slipping from his fingers. I answered with a shaky breath. "Hello?" His voice hit me like a slap, cold, sharp, filled with the arrogance I had once mistaken for confidence. "Emily, open the door. I'm downstairs." My stomach twisted. "No, I don't want to see you. You don't get to decide that," he hissed. "You're my wife. You're coming home." I held the phone tighter. "You let her hit me. You didn't even try to stop it." "Oh, for God's sake," he snapped. "You fell, and you're blowing this out of proportion like usual. Now stop being dramatic and come outside." I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat. If he had been in this room, I might have screamed. "I'm not going back." A pause. A dangerous one. Then he said quietly, "You think that guy can protect you? You think he won't disappear the moment things get complicated?" "Daniel." I felt a tremor in my chest. Rick always sensed the places where I felt weakest and pressed directly into them. But even in my fear, something inside me pushed back. "You don't get to talk about him," I whispered. "Not tonight." Rick's voice hardened into the tone he used at political rallies when he wanted absolute obedience. "I'm coming up." Panic shot through me. "Don't you dare." But he had already hung up. I set the phone down, my hands shaking violently now. My vision blurred again as tears filled my eyes. I didn't want to be alone. Not right now. Not like this. I grabbed the phone again, fumbling through my recent calls until I found the last one from Daniel. The screen shimmered, shapes swimming, but I managed to tap his name. He picked up on the first ring. "Emily?" "He's here," I breathed. "He's trying to come up." Silence. Then Daniel's voice lowered, steady and controlled. "Lock the door. Stay with your son. I'm on my way." I hung up and rushed to the door, nearly tripping over my own feet. I flipped the deadbolt, then slid the chain across with shaking fingers. My breath fogged in front of me as if the air itself had grown cold. Noah stirred, sensing the tension. I scooped him up and held him tight against my chest. "It's okay," I whispered, though my voice was barely audible even to myself. "It's okay. It has to be." But it wasn't. A pounding thud shook the door. "Emily," Rick shouted, "open this damn door." I stumbled backward, clutching Noah so tightly he whimpered. The fear that filled me wasn't just physical, it was the fear of years of manipulation, of being trapped, of losing myself again. "Go away," I cried. "You're making a fool of yourself," he yelled. "You belong at home." Then something else happened, something that froze the air. Another voice entered the hallway. Calm, low, controlled. "Daniel, that's enough," he said. I pressed a hand to my mouth. Relief washed through me so powerfully it nearly knocked me over. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Rick snapped. "Standing between you and the woman you've hurt," Daniel replied. "She's not going with you. You don't get to decide that," Rick spat. Then the sound shifted, scuffling, a shove, a sharp gasp. I couldn't see anything through the peephole, my vision still too blurred, but I could hear it. Two men, two very different kinds of strength colliding. My knees weakened. Noah whimpered, confused. Then Daniel's voice rose again, harder this time. "You should walk away, Rick, before this gets worse." Silence. A beat. Then I heard footsteps retreating down the hall. I sagged against the door, trembling, holding Noah close as my heartbeat thundered in my ears. And then softly Daniel knocked. "It's okay now, Emily," he said. But little did I know, he had just revealed a secret that would change everything about my future. Daniel stayed outside the hotel room for a long moment before I finally opened the door. My vision was still blurry, but I could make out the darker shape of him standing in the soft hallway light. His breathing was controlled, calmer than mine, but I sensed the tension beneath it, like he'd forced himself to stay steady so I wouldn't fall apart again. Noah was still in my arms, his cheek pressed sleepily against my shoulder. I held him close, unsure whether to apologize or collapse. "You're safe now," Daniel said gently. I stepped aside to let him in. He didn't move quickly or make any sudden motions. Instead, he walked in slowly, surveying the room as if checking every shadow to be certain Rick wasn't hiding in one of them. When he finally turned back to me, his expression softened. "He's gone." I exhaled a shaky breath, my knees nearly giving out. "Thank you," I whispered. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "You shouldn't be handling this alone." I placed Noah on the bed, tucking the blanket around his tiny legs. Daniel watched quietly, giving me space. My hands were still trembling as I brushed a curl from my son's forehead. "He acted like I owed him my fear," I said quietly. "Like leaving him was some kind of betrayal." Daniel took a step closer, but kept his voice low. "Men like Rick only feel powerful when someone else is hurting." I swallowed hard. "He won't stop." "He will," Daniel said. "Not because he chooses to, but because he's about to lose the one thing he values more than control." I turned slowly, heart thudding. "What do you mean?" Daniel hesitated, then walked to the small table near the window. He set down a folder I hadn't noticed him carrying. The edges were crisp, the documents inside thick. "I didn't want to show you this until you were steadier," he said, "but tonight proved he's not going to let you go quietly." I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers digging into the blanket. "What's in there?" "Financial filings," he said. "Properties, transfers, records he hid under your name. My breath caught. You saw all that? I work with a legal compliance team in my company, he said. I know how to read things most people overlook. And I recognized Rick the moment I saw him at the hospital. Politicians like him follow the same patterns. My chest tightened. So, he used my name? Daniel nodded. To hide assets, to avoid oversight. But he made a mistake. Those assets legally belong to you. The room seemed to tilt. Wait. You're saying everything he tried to bury, Daniel said quietly, is in your hands now. I pressed a hand over my mouth, shock rippling up my spine. All those penthouses, the shell companies, the quiet investments, things he always kept secret, insisting I didn't need to know. I thought it was arrogance. I never imagined it was strategy. He's terrified you'll figure it out, Daniel added. That's why he's trying to drag you home. I closed my eyes. Fear battled with something else, a small, trembling spark of power I hadn't felt in years. I don't know how to handle something this big. You don't have to handle it alone, Daniel said softly. His voice carried a weight of sincerity I almost wasn't ready for. I lifted my head, my blurred sight catching only the outline of him, but the steadiness in his presence felt clearer than anything I could see. Emily, he continued, you can end this. You can protect yourself, your son, and your future. But you need to be ready for what comes next. I took a slow breath, feeling the shift inside me, small but unmistakable. The fear was still there, but it no longer stood alone. Then show me, I whispered, and Daniel opened the folder, revealing the first truth that would help destroy Rick's entire empire. Daniel laid the folder open on the small table, turning each page slowly so I could follow the outline of the documents, even if I couldn't read every blurred word. The lamp cast a warm glow over the papers, revealing signatures, transaction dates, property deeds, all with my name printed on them. Even in my hazy vision, I recognized my own shaky signature on documents I didn't remember signing. My stomach twisted. I never agreed to any of this. I whispered. I know, Daniel replied. He forged some of these, and the ones he didn't forge, he pressured you, didn't he? My throat tightened. He always said it was routine, that the campaign needed it, that I was making everything too dramatic. Daniel's jaw clenched. That's not routine, it's fraud. The word hung in the air like a weight dropped from a great height. Fraud. It painted everything with a colder, harsher truth. Rick wasn't just cruel, he was criminal, and without realizing it, I had been tied to every one of his schemes. A wave of nausea washed through me. If the government comes after him, they'll come after me too. Daniel shook his head firmly. Not if you act first. Not if you provide proof. These documents show a clear pattern. He placed everything under your name to protect himself, but he also kept the accounts under his control. That makes him the primary beneficiary. Legally, that helps you. I sank back into the chair, legs weak. Noah stirred softly on the bed, a small reminder that I didn't have the luxury of collapsing. I had a child to protect too, including the one still growing inside me. What do I do? I asked, barely above a whisper. Daniel pointed to the last page in the folder, a printed bank statement with a highlighted section. This, he said, tapping it gently, is the key. He funneled thousands of dollars in unreported donations into this account, and it's in your name. If you turn this over, he can't claim ignorance. He swallowed hard. He'll come after me harder, if I expose him. He already is, Daniel said. But right now, he has power. Once these documents reach the right people, he won't. A quiet knock at the door startled both of us. My heart jumped painfully into my throat. Daniel rose instantly, placing a finger to his lips before checking the peephole. I held my breath as he leaned closer, then exhaled in relief when he said, "It's just the manager, probably checking that everything is okay." He cracked the door open slightly, speaking in low tones. I couldn't hear the words, but I heard concern in the manager's voice and seriousness in Daniel's. After a moment, the door closed again. "Everything all right?" I asked, anxiety tightening my chest again. Daniel hesitated. Someone called the hotel asking if you checked in. My blood ran cold. Rick. Most likely, he said, but I told the manager not to confirm anything. You're safe for now. My hands shook so violently I had to clutch the edge of the table. The air felt thin, too thin, like I was breathing through a straw. Daniel moved closer, not touching, but near enough to steady the space around me. Emily, he said quietly, you have leverage you didn't know you had. You can protect yourself and your son, but you need a lawyer who won't be intimidated. I don't know any lawyers, I said, voice cracking. I do. Daniel paused, then added, and she's one of the best in Boston. If we show her these files, she'll know exactly how to bring Rick down. I looked at the folder again, those blurred lines of text, now holding the power to rebuild or destroy everything. My heartbeat steadied, just a little. Okay, I said finally. Call her. Daniel gave a small, relieved nod. I will. First thing in the morning. But then he added something that made my breath catch. Emily, this is bigger than you realize. He held up the final page, one that revealed a name I hadn't expected to see. Sienna had been receiving payments from Rick's hidden account for years. The next morning arrived with a heavy gray sky hanging over Boston, the kind that made the city feel colder than the temperature suggested. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes, Sienna's smirk, Rick's anger, the blur of light just before everything went dark. But when I opened my eyes for real, Noah was curled beside me, breathing softly. His tiny hand rested on my arm, as if anchoring me to the world. Daniel knocked gently before stepping into the room. He carried 2 coffees and a quiet, steady calm I desperately needed. The lawyer's ready, he said. She wants to meet this morning. I sat up slowly, rubbing the stiffness from my neck. Is she really good? One of the best, he assured me. She doesn't scare easily. I nodded, though my stomach tightened. I wasn't afraid of lawyers. I was afraid of the world I was about to expose. By 10 a.m., we were walking into a sleek office building downtown. The elevator ride felt endless, each floor bringing me closer to something irreversible. Daniel stayed beside me, guiding me gently when my vision blurred. I kept Noah strapped in his stroller, his soft babbles reminding me why I couldn't back down now. The lawyer's office was bright, with tall windows overlooking the city. Her name was Alicia Rowan, a sharp, poised woman in her 40s, with the kind of presence that filled the room instantly. She shook my hand with firm confidence. Emily, I've heard the basics, she said, but I need to hear it from you. So I told her. Everything. The night Sienna attacked me, Rick watching, the days of blurred darkness, the fear, the threats, and finally, the documents, the forged signatures, the hidden accounts, the silent betrayal layered beneath the loud ones. When I finished, Alicia leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. You understand what happens once we move forward? She asked. This won't stay quiet. I don't want it quiet, I whispered. I want it to stop. Daniel set the folder on her desk. Alicia opened it and began to review each page with a level of intensity that made my pulse quicken. She highlighted lines, scribbled notes, circled dates. After several minutes, she looked up. This, she said, tapping the papers, is enough to start a formal ethics complaint against him, and it's enough to initiate a financial investigation. My pulse pounded. Will people believe me? They won't have a choice, Alicia said. The paper trail is undeniable, and the timing of your injury? It paints a very clear picture. She wasn't finished. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a slim folder of her own. I need to show you something, she said. Last night, one of my contacts at the legislature forwarded this to me. Daniel and I exchanged a tense glance. Alicia slid the document toward me. Rick is scheduled for a televised interview today, she said. He plans to deny everything, paint you as unstable, and frame your hospital stay as an act of emotional manipulation. My vision tightened into a narrow tunnel of disbelief. He's going to lie on television? He already has talking points prepared, Alicia said. Sienna helped write them. A chill ran down my spine. The idea of the entire state watching him rewrite my suffering into some twisted political strategy made my hands tremble. So what do? I whispered. Alicia folded her hands. You show up, she said firmly. You stand beside me, and we release the truth. If he wants a public stage, then he'll get one. My breath lodged in my chest. A public confrontation. Cameras. Reporters. Headlines. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on the back of my chair, not touching me directly, but grounding the moment. You don't have to do it alone, he murmured. I inhaled slowly. I'll do it, I said. Alicia nodded. Good. Because once we walk into that press room, she closed the folder with a sharp snap. Rick Hartman's world will begin to fall apart. The press conference was scheduled for the afternoon, leaving me a few hours trapped inside a tightening knot of anxiety. Alicia prepared statements at the far end of the hotel room, her voice calm and focused as she rehearsed points, cross-checked documents, and crafted phrases sharp enough to cut through Rick's lies. Daniel sat closer to me, gently rocking Noah's stroller when he fussed. I tried to breathe evenly, but my chest felt tight, as if the air itself was resisting me. You don't have to speak if you're not ready, Daniel reminded me quietly. I have to, I whispered. If I don't, he'll win again. Daniel nodded, understanding more in my voice than I managed to say. I looked down at my phone, its cracked screen glowing with notifications, messages from unknown numbers, half warnings, half accusations. I didn't dare open them. I set the phone face down, but it vibrated again immediately. I flinched. Daniel reached over, placing 2 fingers gently atop the phone. Ignore it, he said. I tried, but panic was creeping in, slow and suffocating. A knock at the door made me jump. Alicia answered it, speaking to someone in the hallway. When she returned, her expression was tight. He just went live on air, she said. It started early. The words punched the air from my lungs. She grabbed the remote and turned on the small hotel TV. The screen flickered, then sharpened into an image that made my heart clench. Rick, perfect suit, polished expression, the mask he wore for voters. Thank you for having me, he told the anchor, voice dripping with sincerity. This past week has been incredibly difficult. My wife has been struggling emotionally during her pregnancy, and unfortunately, some misunderstandings have been blown wildly out of proportion. The anchor nodded sympathetically. My body went cold. Rick continued. She's a wonderful woman, but she's been overwhelmed. I've done everything to support her, but she left home in a moment of confusion. The rumors about violence are simply not true. Confusion, rumors, not true. My vision blurred not from injury this time, but from rage. Daniel muttered under his breath. Alicia tightened her grip on the remote until her knuckles whitened. Then Rick did what I secretly feared most. He smiled gently and said, I hope she watches this, so she knows she can come home. Our family needs healing, not drama. Drama. The same word he'd weaponized for years. Something inside me cracked open. Not the brittle desperation of earlier days, something stronger, sharper. A wave of heat surged through me. My tears didn't fall. They dried. I stood abruptly. Daniel rose instantly, concern in his eyes. Emily. No, I said, voice steady for the first time. I'm done letting him write my story. Alicia exhaled with something like relief. Then let's end it. She gathered the folders, the evidence, the statements. I picked up Noah and held him close. His small weight reminded me of why I couldn't back down. Daniel placed a hand lightly on my back, guiding me toward the door without a single word of hesitation. The drive to the press building felt surreal. The city blurred past the windows. But for once, my blurred vision didn't matter. I knew exactly where I was going and why. Inside the building, the noise was overwhelming. Journalists, cameras, whispers. When people saw me, their murmurs grew louder. I felt exposed, trembling, but Alicia walked ahead confidently, clearing a path. Daniel stayed right behind me like a shield. Just before we reached the podium, my phone buzzed again. Against every instinct, I checked it. A single message from an unknown number. You don't want the world to know the rest. My stomach lurched. And in that moment, I realized Rick still had one more secret, one he was counting on to destroy me. The message on my phone stared back at me like a threat carved into glass. You don't want the world to know the rest. My fingers tightened around the device until my knuckles burned. I didn't recognize the number, but the tone, cold, confident, calculated, felt unmistakably like Sienna's, or worse, Rick's. My vision flickered with panic. My knees weakened. Daniel immediately stepped closer, steadying me with his presence. "Emily," he murmured. "What is it?" I handed him the phone with a shaking hand. He read the message, jaw tightening as he exhaled sharply. "They're trying to rattle you. Don't let them." But the words were already spiraling inside my head. The rest. What else could there be? What more could Rick twist, fabricate, or unleash? Alicia took one look at my face and asked, "Do you need a moment before the press starts?" I shook my head. "If I stop now, I won't be able to start again." She gave a brief nod, respect flickering in her eyes. "Then let's finish this." The press room lights were blinding. Even with my vision still blurred around the edges, I could feel the weight of dozens of cameras pointing at me. The hum of whispered speculation filled the air as Alicia stepped to the podium. "Good afternoon," she began, sliding the folder open with a crisp motion. "My client, Emily Hartman, is here to present documented evidence regarding the financial misconduct of her husband, Speaker Richard Hartman." The room erupted into scattered gasps. I stood slightly behind her, hands trembling around the stroller handle where Noah slept peacefully. Daniel stood to my right, keeping a discreet yet steady presence. Between the blur of bright lights, I could make out the faint outlines of reporters leaning forward, eager, predatory. Alicia explained the shell companies, the forged documents, the hidden accounts. For the first time, Rick's carefully manufactured image began to crack, not behind closed doors, but in front of the entire state. Then she stepped aside so I could speak. My heart thudded painfully as I approached the microphone. The metal felt cold beneath my hands. "For years," I began, my voice unsteady, "I believed I was the problem. I believed I was failing as a wife, failing as a partner. But the truth is, I was being controlled." A ripple moved through the room. I didn't know he placed assets under my name. I didn't know he was hiding money. And I didn't know he'd let someone lay hands on me while I was carrying his child. Another wave of whispers. Cameras clicked frantically. But I know now, and I won't be silent anymore. It was the first time I heard my own voice sounding certain in months. A reporter stood. "Mrs. Hartman, your husband claims you're emotionally unstable. Do you want to comment?" The question sliced through the room. I froze, my throat closed. The cameras leaned closer, hungry for the answer. Then Daniel stepped forward, placing one hand gently on the back of the stroller, grounding me again. The warmth of his presence steadied the swirling chaos inside me. "I'm not unstable," I said clearly. "I'm a mother, a survivor, and I'm finally telling the truth." The room fell silent. But just as Alicia prepared to close the statements, a young intern rushed into the room, pale and out of breath. She whispered urgently into another journalist's ear, and the color drained from his face. He raised a hand shakily. "Mrs. Hartman, we just received confirmation your husband has filed for emergency custody of your son." My world tilted. My breath caught. Noah slept peacefully, unaware of the storm building around him. Alicia swore under her breath. Daniel stepped closer, ready to catch me if I faltered. And in that instant, I realized Rick wasn't trying to scare me, he was trying to take my child. The moment the reporter announced Rick's emergency custody filing, the room erupted into chaos. Cameras flashed like lightning, voices overlapped. 100 questions shot toward me at once, each sharper than the last. My hands went numb, gripping the stroller so tightly my knuckles throbbed. Noah stirred, sensing my fear, letting out a soft, confused cry. I bent over him instinctively, shielding him from the sudden onslaught of noise. Alicia stepped between me and the reporters, her voice firm. "We will not be answering further questions today." She motioned to security, who began clearing a path. Daniel placed a steady hand on my back, guiding me away as the press tried to push closer. "Is it true Rick says you're unfit? Did you abandon your marital home? Are you mentally unstable during pregnancy? Mrs. Hartman, why won't you respond?" The questions felt like lashes. I lowered my head, blinking hard to clear the blur in my vision. Every camera flash looked like white fire. My chest tightened until breathing felt impossible. Once we reached the hallway, the noise muted, replaced with the dull roar of blood rushing through my ears. I leaned against the wall, swallowing hard. "Emergency custody," I whispered. "He wants to take Noah." Daniel crouched in front of me, his voice steady. "He's doing it because he's cornered. This is desperation, not strength." But desperation from Rick was more dangerous than power. Alicia opened her briefcase with swift, practiced movements. "Emily, listen to me," she said. "He can file whatever he wants, but judges don't make decisions without evidence. And the fact that he filed right after your press conference, that works in our favor." My breath trembled out unevenly. "What does he think he has? What's he planning to use against me?" Alicia hesitated, and that hesitation terrified me. "He'll dig up anything he can twist. Hospital records, past arguments, pregnancy hormones, anything that makes you look unstable." "I'm not unstable," I said, though my voice cracked. Daniel's voice was firm. "And we can prove that," but I couldn't shake the dread coiling in my stomach. Rick always found a way to twist truth into a weapon. He never fought fair. We made our way to the parking garage beneath the building. The cold air hit my face like icy water. Daniel opened the car door, helping me ease the stroller inside. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the buckle. He gently took over, securing Noah carefully before closing the door. As he rounded the car, Alicia tapped quickly on her phone. "I'm requesting an immediate hearing with a family court judge. If Rick wants a battle, he's getting one." Her confidence gave me a momentary breath of relief, but then my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. My heart lurched. Daniel saw my expression, but I couldn't stop myself. I opened the message. A video. My stomach dropped. It was footage, blurry, shaky, but unmistakable. Me, in the hospital, disoriented, blind, stumbling, crying out for someone. A nurse trying to steady me, my voice rising in panic. The kind of footage that, without context, could be twisted into anything. A short message followed. "This doesn't look like a stable mother to a judge, does it?" My knees buckled. Daniel caught me before I hit the ground. "Emily, look at me," he said sharply. "This is intimidation. They're trying to break you." But my pulse was racing too fast. My thoughts spiraled too quickly. The idea of a judge seeing that video without knowing why I was like that made my vision swim. I pressed a trembling hand to my belly, trying to ground myself. Alicia snatched the phone from my hand, fury burning in her eyes. "This is harassment," she said, "and illegal. They just handed us another weapon." I stared at her, barely able to breathe. "Will it be enough?" She held my gaze, steady and unflinching. "It's enough to burn Rick Hartman's entire strategy to the ground." Daniel squeezed my shoulder gently, but then he said something that froze my blood. "Emily, if they had this video, it means they were watching you in the hospital, which meant Rick's plan went far deeper than we realized." Daniel's words sank into the cold air of the parking garage like a warning I wasn't prepared to hear. If Rick had footage from the hospital, it meant someone on the inside had been helping him. Someone had filmed me during my weakest moment, the moment I could barely stand, barely breathe, barely see. A chill ran through me as I realized I might have been surrounded by people who knew exactly what Rick was doing and said nothing. Alicia paced a few steps away, muttering under her breath as she examined the video again, fury radiating from every movement. "This wasn't taken by a nurse," she said finally. "Look at the angle. This was filmed from the corner of the room. Most likely a camera placed without authorization." My stomach clenched. "So Rick had me watched?" "More than watched," Alicia replied. "Monitored." Daniel swore under his breath, running a hand through his hair. "He knew she'd end up in the hospital. That's the only reason to plant a camera." The implication hit me like a blow. "You're saying he planned it?" Daniel met my blurred gaze. "He planned something. Maybe not the injury. But he planned to use whatever happened against you." I felt sick, truly sick. Rick's cruelty had always been sharp, but this was strategic, calculated. Alicia tucked the phone into her bag. "We need to get ahead of this. If he uses this footage in court, We counter with proof that the video was illegally obtained. Judges don't look kindly on surveillance without consent. I leaned against the car, my legs trembling. He'll do anything to win. Anything. So will we, Alicia said. But we do it legally. Daniel opened the car door. Let's get out of here. We need to get you somewhere safe before we plan the next step. As I slid into the seat, Noah let out a small cry, and I gently soothed him. The thought of losing him pulled something fierce and protective inside me. I wouldn't let Rick near my son. I wouldn't let him twist my pain into weaponry. As we drove, the city blurred through my still unsteady vision. Alicia spoke softly from the front seat. We'll need evidence of his behavior. Anything you remember, any threats, any bruises, any messages. I nodded slowly. You don't have to ignore them anymore, Daniel said. His voice was steady but carried a quiet anger I hadn't heard before. Anger for me, not at me. For the first time, in a long time, I didn't feel stupid for staying. I felt wronged, deeply wronged. We reached the hotel, and Alicia walked us inside, glancing around with the alertness of someone expecting an ambush. When we reached my room, she stopped abruptly. The door was slightly open. My breath caught. Daniel stepped in front of me immediately. Stay behind me. Alicia pulled out her phone, ready to call security. But Daniel pushed the door open slowly. The room was dim, the curtains drawn. Nothing looked stolen. Nothing was overturned. But something was off. My sweater had been moved from the chair. The folder of documents had been shifted on the table. And then I saw it. A single item placed carefully on the pillow where I had slept. Rick's cufflink, the one he wore to every political gala. Alicia's face drained of color. He was here. My heart dropped into a cold, hollow pit. Daniel reached for the cufflink, examining it with controlled rage. He's sending a message. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The tiny silver cufflink sat on the pillow like a threat shaped into metal, quiet, polished, confident. The kind of confidence Rick carried everywhere, even into places he had no right to be. My breath caught in my chest as the realization settled over me like ice. He had stood inches from where Noah slept, inches from where I laid my head just hours earlier. Daniel closed his fingers around the cufflink, his jaw tight with restrained fury. He didn't break anything, he said, scanning the room. He didn't take anything. He wanted you to know he could get in. Alicia dialed hotel security with swift, angry movements. This is escalation. We need documentation, photos, a written report. And then we go to the police. My knees felt weak. I gripped the back of the chair to steady myself. How did he find us? How did he get past the front desk? Alicia's eyes hardened. Money. Influence. Or someone on the staff helped him. It doesn't matter which it ends today. Noah stirred in his crib, letting out a soft cry. I rushed to him, lifting him gently, feeling his warm cheek against my shoulder. The idea that Rick had been in the room with my baby while I was gone made my stomach twist with a fear deeper than anything I'd felt before. This wasn't about custody. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about control. And Rick was showing me he still believed he owned everything: my life, my child, my choices, even my fear. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. You and Noah are leaving this hotel tonight. I'm not letting you stay here another minute. Alicia nodded. I agree. I'll arrange a temporary protective order. This crosses every line. But before she could finish, the phone on the desk rang, a shrill, piercing sound that cut straight through the room. I froze. Daniel stepped toward it cautiously. Don't answer. But the ringing continued, louder somehow, echoing against the walls. Something in my chest tightened. I set Noah down, my hands trembling, and reached for the receiver. Emily, Daniel warned, but it was too late. I pressed the phone to my ear. Silence. Then breathing. Slow. Deliberate. My heart pounded. Rick? A soft chuckle came through the line, as familiar as a nightmare. You left the door unlocked. I didn't even have to try. My throat closed. Stay away from my son. Your son? he repeated, amused. You think you get to make decisions? You think parading around with that pathetic press conference changes anything? Daniel reached for the phone, but I turned away, gripping it tighter. I'm not afraid of you anymore, I said, though my voice wavered. Rick let out a low, mocking hum. You should be. A click. The line went dead. My body sagged, every muscle trembling. Daniel removed the phone from my hand, gently. He's unraveling, he said. That's what desperate men do. But it didn't feel like unraveling. It felt like the beginning of something far more dangerous. Alicia returned with hotel security. They examined the door, checked the cameras, took statements. But their apologetic expressions told us everything. They had no footage of Rick entering or leaving, almost like he'd vanished into thin air, or like someone erased the evidence for him. We're leaving now, Daniel said, his voice firm. Pack whatever you need. I stuffed Noah's clothes into the diaper bag, grabbed my purse, my documents, anything my blurred vision could catch. My hands shook so badly I dropped the bag twice before Daniel steadied it for me. We walked to the car in tense silence. The parking lot felt too quiet, too open. Daniel scanned every corner before unlocking the doors. He helped me buckle Noah in, then placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You're safe, he murmured. But as he closed the passenger door, I saw it. A shadow behind a nearby column. Watching us, not moving. My breath caught, and I realized Rick wasn't finished, not even close. Daniel froze the moment he saw the shadow near the concrete column. His entire posture shifted, shoulders squared, stance braced, eyes narrowing with a calm alertness that told me he had dealt with danger before. He stepped forward slightly, placing himself between me and whatever or whoever was watching us. My breath hitched, and I instinctively moved closer to the car, shielding Noah with my body. The shadow didn't move, not an inch. Alicia, who had just stepped out of the hotel entrance, spotted the tension instantly. Daniel, she called, her voice taut. He didn't take his eyes off the figure. Get in the car, Alicia, now. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement as she hurried toward us. Daniel advanced a single step, the air vibrating with silent warning. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. I blinked, trying to sharpen my vision, but the blur only made the figure appear more ominous, tall, still, almost merged with the concrete. Then, slowly, the shadow shifted, stepping into the faint spill of the overhead light. Not Rick, a hotel employee, a young man in a uniform, hands raised slightly in startled confusion. Sorry, he blurted out. I wasn't trying to scare anyone. The manager said to keep an eye on the lot after what happened. Daniel exhaled sharply, tension draining from his shoulders. Alicia muttered something under her breath that sounded like a prayer of relief. But even as the truth settled, I couldn't stop trembling. My body had learned fear too deeply. It reacted before my brain could catch up. We're leaving, Daniel said firmly, guiding me into the passenger seat. No more hotels. No more temporary shelters. Where will we go? I whispered, buckling Noah with shaking fingers. To Manhattan, he said. My company has an apartment there. Secure building, doormen, 24-hour surveillance. No one gets in without clearance. I stared at him, stunned. Daniel, I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking, he replied. I'm offering. His tone left no room for argument. The drive out of Boston felt surreal. Lights streaked past my hazy vision like soft trails of color, the city fading behind us, mile by mile. Noah slept peacefully in the back seat, unaware of the storm swirling around him. Alicia followed in her car, headlights steady behind us like a protective anchor. As the road stretched toward New York, the panic in my chest slowly eased. Not gone, but breathing room formed, small and trembling, like a fragile bridge holding under pressure. Halfway through the drive, I shifted in my seat and glanced at Daniel. The dim glow from the dashboard light softened his features, calm brow, focused eyes, hands steady on the wheel. I hadn't noticed before how quietly strong he was, how his presence felt like warmth without noise. You didn't have to do all this, I said softly. He kept his gaze on the road. I couldn't leave you there. It isn't your responsibility. Maybe not, he murmured. But that doesn't change anything. Silence settled between us, not heavy but thoughtful. I turned slightly, watching the blur of headlights outside the window. I'm not used to people helping me, I admitted. Rick always made me feel like needing help was weakness. Daniel glanced at me then, just long enough for me to feel the sincerity in his expression. It's not weakness, he said. It's being human. Something warm tugged at my chest. Unexpected, unfamiliar, dangerous in the gentlest way. I looked down at my hands, still trembling faintly. I don't even know who I am anymore. You will, Daniel replied softly. And when you do, you won't recognize the woman who lived in fear. His words felt like a hand reaching into the darkness and finding mine. But just as the tension inside me began to ease, my phone buzzed again, a single notification that made my blood run cold. A court summons. Emergency hearing. 48 hours. Rick was moving faster than all of us. The court summons sat open on my phone like a wound that refused to close. Even with my vision still hazy, I could read the bold words clearly enough. Emergency custody hearing. 48 hours. The kind of hearing Rick could manipulate with a single polished sentence. The kind he was born to win. My stomach twisted, a cold knot tightening inside me. I pressed the phone against my chest and tried to breathe, but every inhale felt thin, fragile, unsteady. Daniel noticed immediately. "Emily, look at me." His voice was calm, anchored. I lifted my gaze shakily. "This isn't the end," he said. "This is just another move in his game, and we have better players on our side now." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But fear had carved itself into my bones so deeply that hope felt foreign. "He'll twist everything," I whispered. "He always does." "No judge will remove a child from a mother without strong evidence," Daniel said. "And he doesn't have any." "He has that video," I reminded him, swallowing hard. "Which was illegally obtained," he countered. "And you have medical records, a police report, witnesses, me, Alicia." He's not the only one who gets to tell the story. Alicia, driving a few miles ahead, called on speaker. "Emily, listen," she said, voice tight with focus. "This hearing wasn't scheduled by a judge. It was requested by Rick's attorney. The courts still have to approve it. And with the evidence we're filing tonight, we have a strong chance of delaying it long enough to build a complete case." Her words should have eased me, but the pressure inside my chest only grew. "And if they don't delay it, then we show up ready," she said, "and we strike first." After the call ended, the car fell into a heavy silence. Manhattan lights appeared ahead of us, on the horizon tall, shimmering, distant. The skyline rose like a promise and a warning all at once. As we crossed into the city, the roads grew brighter, busier, louder. I felt like I was stepping into a new world with no map. Daniel's apartment was in a secure building overlooking Central Park. Even blurred, the lobby looked impossibly polished, soft lighting, polished stone floors, tall windows reflecting the city glow. A uniformed doorman greeted Daniel by name, opening the doors without question. Inside the penthouse unit, everything felt impossibly calm. Warm wooden floors, soft lighting, a faint scent of cedar. Safety. For the first time in days, my body sagged with exhaustion. I set Noah in the crib Daniel had brought up from storage, watching his tiny chest rise and fall. My hand drifted to my stomach, feeling the gentle thump of the child growing inside me. A reminder of what was at stake. A reminder of why I couldn't fall apart. Daniel returned with 2 glasses of water and set one in front of me before sitting across the table. The city lights framed him from behind, a quiet halo of gold. "Tell me everything," he said gently. "Every detail. Not just what happened this week, everything from the start." I hesitated. Then something inside me cracked, not painfully, but like a locked door finally giving way. I told him about the early days, when Rick's charm felt like sunlight. About the slow shift, the first dismissive comment, the first cold night, the first time he made me believe my feelings were overreactions. I told him about the fear, the isolation, the exhaustion of trying to keep a sinking marriage from drowning me. Daniel listened, really listened, not with sympathy, but with understanding, with a quiet fire behind his eyes. When I finally finished, he leaned forward. "Emily, he said softly. He didn't just mistreat you. He built a world where you couldn't see how strong you were. My throat tightened. I don't feel strong. You are, he insisted. And when you walk into that courtroom, Rick won't be facing the same woman he controlled. He'll be facing the woman who survived him. A tremor ran through my body, not fear this time, but something close to awakening. But then Daniel added, "There's one more thing we need before the hearing." He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder I'd never seen. Inside was a truth about Rick. I wasn't prepared for one that changed everything about our marriage. Daniel placed the mysterious folder on the table with a quiet seriousness that made my pulse quicken. The soft hum of Manhattan outside our window felt distant now, muted under the weight of whatever truth he was about to reveal. My hands trembled as I reached for the folder, but he touched it first, stopping me gently. "Before you look," he said softly, "you need to prepare yourself. This isn't just political. It's personal." My breath caught. "How personal?" He hesitated, then pushed the folder toward me. I opened it. At first, the blurred lines on the page looked like any other financial document: columns, numbers, signatures. Then I saw the name. A woman's name. Not Sienna. Someone else. My heart dropped into a cold, hollow space. The documents showed regular payments, large payments from a private account Rick had kept hidden. Payments he labeled as support funds. Alicia stepped closer. She exhaled sharply. "Emily, this is child support." My fingers froze on the paper. "Child support." Daniel nodded once. "Rick has a daughter, a child he's been supporting secretly for 6 years. My mind spun. The blurry print wavered as tears filled my eyes. "He has another child?" "Yes," Daniel said. "And based on the dates, the child was conceived while you were still newly married." I pressed a hand over my chest, trying to steady the ache spreading through it. Memories swirled: nights he came home late, unexplained trips, sudden bursts of generosity he never showed me. All of it now forming a picture so cruelly clear I felt sick. "Does Sienna know?" I whispered. Alicia shook her head. "This predates her, but if the public learns he has an unacknowledged child, his career goes up in smoke. This is a scandal big enough to collapse his entire political foundation." My breath felt thin, shaky. "So this could help us in court." "It's more than help," Alicia said. "If he tries to claim you're unstable, we counter with this. A judge will not look kindly on a man hiding a second family while accusing his wife of being unfit. It destroys his credibility." I sank into the chair, burying my face in my hands. I wasn't just betrayed. I was replaced quietly, secretly, intentionally. Every moment I had spent doubting myself was suddenly flooded with clarity. It had never been me. It had always been him. Daniel moved closer, his voice gentle. "Emily, this is not your failure. This is his character laid bare." I let out a shaky exhale. The room felt both small and painfully bright. "Why didn't he leave me? Why keep me around?" Alicia answered quietly. "Because he needed you. Your clean record. Your credibility. Your stability. You were the cover. His shield." The truth sliced deeper than any hit Sienna had ever swung at me. I felt shattered, but not the same way as before. This time, the pieces weren't sharp with fear. They were sharp with clarity. I straightened, wiping my eyes. "So what do we do now?" Alicia closed the folder with a firm, decisive snap. "Tomorrow, we present this along with the forged documents, the illegal surveillance, the medical records, the witness statements. We show the judge exactly who Rick Hartman is." Daniel leaned forward. "And Emily, the moment you walk into that courtroom with this evidence, he's done. Not just politically, legally, personally, completely." I inhaled slowly, deeply. For the first time since this nightmare began, my lungs filled without shaking. I looked at my reflection in the window, blurred, tired, but standing. "I'm ready," I whispered, but the universe wasn't finished. Just as Daniel gathered the folders, a loud knock shook the apartment door, urgent, pounding, relentless. Alicia froze. Daniel tensed. I stood slowly, heart racing. Someone on the other side wanted in, and they weren't waiting politely. The pounding on the apartment door came again, 3 hard strikes, forceful enough to rattle the frame. I froze, mid-step, breath trapped in my throat. Daniel immediately moved in front of me, shielding me with his body as he motioned for Alicia to stay back. My heart thudded so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Noah stirred in his crib, letting out a tiny cry that pierced me straight through. Daniel raised a hand, silently asking for stillness, then approached the door with slow, measured steps. "Who is it?" he called out, voice steady but edged with warning. A firm answer echoed from the hallway. "NYPD. We need to speak with Emily Hartman." My stomach dropped. "Police. Here. Now." Alicia hurried forward, her heels clicking sharply across the floor. "Ask for identification," she whispered urgently to Daniel. He did. The officers slid their badges under the small security gap in the door. Alicia examined them carefully, then nodded. Daniel unlocked the door, but kept the chain on, opening it only a few inches. 2 officers stood in the hall, their expressions serious but not hostile. "We received a report that Mrs. Hartman might be in danger," one of them said. "We were asked to perform a welfare check, which meant only one thing." Rick was pretending to be concerned. Anger simmered under my fear. I stepped forward, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'm fine. I'm here voluntarily. I'm safe." The officer studied me for a long moment, likely assessing whether I was being coerced. Daniel remained quiet but protective at my side. Alicia stepped in with her legal tone. "Mrs. Hartman is under my counsel. She is preparing evidence for a court hearing. She is not missing. She is not endangered. And she is not returning to her husband." The officers exchanged a look understanding, relieved, maybe even sympathetic. "Very well," the taller one said. "We apologize for the disturbance. But if anything changes, call us." "We will," Daniel replied curtly, closing the door. Once it clicked shut, he exhaled, long and controlled. Alicia ran a hand through her hair, muttering, "He's trying to create a paper trail. He wants to show concern before the hearing. He wants to rewrite the narrative," I said softly. "Just like always." "Not this time," Daniel said. He led me back toward the living room, and I felt myself steadier, anchored by the certainty in his voice. Noah's soft whimpers pulled me toward the crib. I lifted him gently, feeling his small fingers curl into my shirt. I breathed him in, letting his warmth ground me again. Outside the massive window, Manhattan glowed towers of gold and blue rising into the night sky. I stared at the city lights, letting them settle something inside me. This city didn't know me, didn't expect anything from me. It didn't judge me or shape me into anything. It simply existed strong, alive, resilient, and for the first time, I felt a strange, new sense of belonging. Daniel watched me quietly. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "I think I'm starting to be." He offered a small smile. "Good, because tomorrow, everything changes." Alicia gathered her files, preparing to leave. "I'll be back at dawn," she said. "Get some sleep if you can. We need you focused." Sleep felt impossible, but I agreed anyway. When the door closed behind her, the apartment grew still warm, safe, almost peaceful. I rocked Noah gently, humming under my breath until his breaths evened out. When I finally turned, I saw Daniel standing by the window, hands in his pockets, eyes softening when they met mine. The city lights reflected across his face, highlighting something I hadn't noticed before, something patient, protective, quietly waiting, not pressing, not asking, just waiting. My chest tightened in a way that wasn't fear, and I realized something I'd been pushing down for days. Daniel wasn't just helping me survive. He was helping me feel alive again. But before anything could unfold, dawn would bring the hearing that determined the rest of our lives. Dawn crept slowly across the Manhattan skyline, soft gold light spilling between the towers and brushing against the apartment windows. I barely slept, but something in me felt strangely steady, as if After weeks of fear, my spirit had finally found its footing. Noah slept peacefully in my arms, warm and safe, unaware that today the world would try to decide his fate. I pressed a kiss to his forehead, whispering, "Mommy's right here. I'm not losing you." Daniel appeared in the doorway, dressed in a dark suit that made him look impossibly grounded. "Alicia's downstairs," he said gently. "It's time." I nodded, adjusting Noah's tiny coat. My hands didn't tremble the way they used to. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe resolve, but either way, I felt different. Stronger, clearer. The courthouse buzzed with tension the moment we stepped inside. Lawyers, reporters, staff, everyone seemed to pause when they saw us. I could feel eyes following me, but for the first time in months, I didn't shrink. Daniel walked beside me, close but respectful. An unspoken promise in every step. Alicia led the way with brisk confidence, folder in hand, armor in place. Inside the courtroom, Rick was already seated. He looked polished, rehearsed, collected every hair in place, expression calm, suit immaculate. But when his eyes met mine, something flickered. Not confidence, fear. His attorney whispered something to him, but Rick didn't seem to hear. He kept staring at me, as if he no longer recognized the woman standing across from him. The hearing began. His lawyer started with the predictable narrative. Emily is overwhelmed. The pregnancy has affected her judgment. She fled the home in a moment of distress. Lies coated in silk, delivered with smooth precision, but Alicia rose slowly, like someone drawing a sword. "Your Honor," she said, "we would like to present evidence of Speaker Hartman's illegal surveillance of his wife, financial fraud, domestic endangerment, and the concealment of a 6-year-old child from his marriage." The courtroom erupted. Rick's face drained of all color. One by one, Alicia laid the evidence out: photos, documents, signatures, timestamps. She presented the forged accounts, the funneling of money, the secret daughter, the hidden apartment in Cambridge, where he kept his second life. Then she showed the cufflink found in my room, the surveillance footage, the threats, the hospital report confirming my injuries. Every piece, every lie, every bruise he caused exposed under the bright courtroom lights. Rick's attorney tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a single raised hand. When it was my turn to speak, I stood. My voice was quiet, but it was steady. "I'm not unstable," I said. "I'm a mother who survived what he hoped would break me. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to protect my children." For the first time, Rick looked small, desperate, cornered. The judge reviewed the final documents, then looked directly at him. "Mr. Hartman, your actions demonstrate a serious pattern of manipulation, deception, and coercion. Effective immediately, custody is granted solely to Mrs. Hartman. Your visitation rights are suspended, pending further investigation." My breath caught. I pulled Noah into my arms, tears spilling freely, but these tears weren't fear. They were freedom. Rick slumped back as if the world had finally caught up to him. The weight of consequences he had dodged for years fell all at once. When the gavel struck, the case was closed. Outside the courthouse, cold air swept around me, carrying a strange, beautiful lightness. Daniel stepped closer, his voice soft. "It's over." I looked up at him, the man who stood with me in darkness until I could see again. "No," I whispered, tears warming my cheeks. "It's finally beginning." He reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. And beneath the Manhattan sky, holding my son and my future, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever: hope. So, that's where the story closes. And if you're still here with me at this moment, listening until the very last second, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a real quiet way. And I want to take a breath with you right now, just you and me, to look at this story not as drama, but as a mirror. Emily's path reminds us of something Marcus Aurelius once wrote. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." She didn't choose the pain. She didn't choose the betrayal. But she chose her response. She chose to rise. And maybe, in your own life, you're carrying something heavy too: a heartbreak, a disappointment, a silent battle no one sees. Remember, healing is not loud. It's not perfect. It's the quiet decision to stand again, even when your knees shake. If this story gave you strength, even just a spark, then let's stay connected. Give this video a like, share it with someone who needs courage today, and subscribe so you don't walk your journey alone. I'm here with you truly.